Kamen America, spinning out a political parody into her own high-flying henshin heroic adventures, this patriotic paladin quickly became the darling of the indie comics world. Releasing 7 main books in a little over 3 years, as well as several crossovers and spin-offs, there is certainly lots to get into should you decide to read about this lightning lass. Lots to get into and lots to discuss. Fans have been talking about their favorite scenes, the foreshadowing, who's best girl, asking creators questions, you know, the typical fandom stuff. Depending on the topic, these discussions can lead to debates, and that means each person has to go back to the book to find evidence for their side. For example, if I were to debate that Kamen America had super strength, I would look for feats and statements in the main series that support that side. But would I be able to use the crossovers to help my case? Tomorrow Girl vs. Kamen America, just as the title states, has the 2 titular characters exchange blows, and one of Tomorrow Girl's powers is hyper strength. The fact that Kamen America can physically compete with Tomorrow Girl is a pretty big piece of evidence for her having enhanced strength, but if the crossover isn't canon, then it doesn't matter. On the other hand, if the crossover is canon, then the series Tomorrow Girl originates from Ninja High School, and by extension Gold Digger, would be canon to Kamen America. But given how long these series are and how Kamen America was not planned to be a part of them, sharing a universe probably causes some continuity issues. What about the spin-offs like the web series? What is canon to Kamen America? This video will answer that question. By going through official sources and statements from the creators, this video will provide you with everything canon to Kamen America at the time of this recording, as well as the rules of canon for Kamen America, so you'll be able to know what future releases are canon and which are not. Let's start with the commonality timeline. This timeline, which was last updated during the campaign of Black Ops X Kamen America X Soulfinder, hence why it doesn't include Kamen America Volumes past Volume 5, shows that Black Ops and Soulfinder take place in the same universe as Kamen America. As such, what we have as canon now are Kamen America Volumes 1 to 7, Black Ops Volumes 1 to 5 with the 2 crossovers being Volumes 4 and 5, Soulfinder Demon's Match, Black Tide, Infinite Ascent, Warcry, and any future entry into any of these series. Well, any future entry may not completely apply in regards to Soulfinder. You see, Kamen America and Black Ops are both made by Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini, while Soulfinder is the creation of Doug Ernst. What this means is that, should Doug choose to take Soulfinder in its own direction, then even though the first 4 entries of the series are canon to Kamen America, future entries would not.
Okay, so Soulfinder is part of the commonality universe. It's
yes, it's part of our universe, but that doesn't mean that in the future, if Doug doesn't want to acknowledge anything that happens in our universe with his books, that's fine. So it doesn't have to be canon to him, but it's canon to us. So
yeah,
this is the timeline
really cool.
of events.
As of now, there is no indication of that happening, so for the time being, any new Soulfinder book is assumed to be canon. There are also the 2 Kamen America spin-offs, Kamen America the web series and its follow-up, Kamen Academy. The web series takes place at various points of the main series, and Kamen Academy takes place during the time skip between volumes 6 and 7.
I want to talk about Kamen America, the web series. To join us over on Webtoons for the weekly, free, all-new Kamen America series. And these aren't just reprints or pages of the Kamen America comic books, like reposted a page at a time each week, which is what some people think this is. That's not what it is at all. It's all new Kamen America stories, and they're all canon. So what is Kamen America the web series? I keep telling Tim that it's Kamen America Gaiden. Now, what is Gaiden? That's Japanese for side story. And that's what Kamen America the web series is. It's the side stories. The stuff that happens in between the main volumes or in between pages of the volumes, just the little things, the little stories, stuff that may have gotten glossed over as we had to hurry along the plot, or just little opportunities to expand on the mythology and the characters and their backstories. So we have to keep everything canon, obviously.
Yes.
So people have already asked.
So it's like, so it's like acting villains. Yeah, it'd be like.
So yeah, so people are already asking like, what's Hair Trigger doing? Because she appears in one of the early strips. Like, how is she there if she's a criminal who's in prison? And like, we're going to explain like how certain characters show up in Kamen Academy. If they're really those characters or if they're actors or not, we're gonna explore that.
A little bit of a spoiler alert. We talked about it last night, but there's something that takes place at the end of Volume 6 and between Volume 7 where there's a little bit of a time jump, not huge, but it's about 3.5, 4 months. So for people wondering, like, how are they filming this TV show, it actually takes place in that intersegmental period.
Nice.
A quick thing to note is that Kamen Academy is mostly an in-universe show where things can happen that otherwise wouldn't.
Because it's a TV show within the comic, so the comic is the real world. So if you drop an anvil on Carly's head in Kamen America, she dies. But if you drop an anvil on Carly's head in Kamen Academy, it could have hilarious results, you know, that kind of thing. So we can be a bit more cartoony and goofy. In Kamen Academy, it's a bit more anything goes.
So if I want to make a How Strong is Kamen America video, I wouldn't be able to use any feats from Kamen Academy unless there is some context stating that the characters are capable of doing the feat normally. Following that, we have the crossovers, Tomorrow Girl vs. Kamen America, Flory Girl meets Kamen America, and Regs issues 8 and 9. The Regs Sailor Rajowski one-shot is not included since Kamen America only appeared on one of the covers for it and not the actual story. In regards to if these are canon, the answer is yes.
So we view it like in the 80s, Marvel had G.I. Joe comics by Larry Hama and Transformers comics by Simon Furman. And they ran in a parallel universe where they were basically running right alongside each other, but their continuities only matched when they intersected for crossovers. So they would intersect for a crossover, and the G.I. Joes would blow up Bumblebee, and he'd get rebuilt as Goldbug, and then that would be canon to the Transformers comic, and then they'd go back their separate ways, and then they'd reconnect again for Generation 2. And in Generation 2, Cobra rebuilt Megatron and in his tank body, and then they went back to their parallel universes, and then in Transformers, they blew up San Francisco, like nuked it off the face of the earth. But in G.I. Joe, San Francisco was fine and never got nuked. These books would cross over and their continuities would intersect, but what happened in Transformers when it wasn't a crossover didn't necessarily happen in G.I. Joe when it wasn't a crossover. They just sort of ran beside each other, would intersect, and they'd go their separate ways. And that's kind of how we view it. Same thing with this Kamen America versus Tomorrow Girl that Ben Dunn is doing over at Antarctic Press.
I was going to ask about that.
Yep, that's another one. They sent us the script for review, and we reviewed everything that's impacted Carly, her voice, her continuity, her narrative. We made sure there's no discontinuity with Kamen America. But anything that Ben Dunn is doing with his Tomorrow Girl continuity is his own business and his own series. So we made sure that we don't step on his toes, he doesn't step on ours, and we have a nice crossover.
We take the whole crossover thing pretty seriously because one thing that we want to do is, one, we want to avoid parallel universes. Like, they just don't exist at all. There's no Earth 2 Carly running around out there. But the second thing is that we want the crossovers to matter so that when it occurs, it's something that actually happened and not something that we just wrote off as like, that was like good times, but there's no repercussions or anything.
So there you have it. The crossover themselves are canon, but the other series are not. I think the exception to that rule would be when you can get specific clarification. Say in Tomorrow Girl vs. Kamen America 2, that Tomorrow Girl uses an attack called World Breaking Punch. Looking at just the crossover, you probably think that the name is just hyperbolic and Tomorrow Girl isn't actually destroying planets. But then, if you were to look at Ninja High School or her solo series and find out that the attack has destroyed planets and Tomorrow Girl specifically named the attack World Breaker because of that, then you could be able to argue that Tomorrow Girl destroying the planets would also be canon to Kamen America. Don't know if anything like that will ever pop up, but just something to keep in mind. Finally, we reach the series where Kamen America made her debut, My Hero Macadamia. The series has been called optionally canon in regards to Kamen America.
And then Eva Unit again says, is Macadamia non-canon to Kamen America and Black Ops? It is, how do we describe it? It is canon if you want it to be canon, but because it's so, it's a satire and a farce by nature, you don't have to perceive it that way. You don't have to have read it to have to
it's
understand
optional
what's going
canon.
on.
I'd say it's if you've read it and you liked it, then it's canon. If you have no interest in it, then it doesn't have to be canon. You're not going to lose any context or miss anything. The Black Ops and Kamen America books are fairly intertwined, but you can read them separately. The Walmite trilogy is kind of off in its own thing. It did intersect with Walmite 2, but the canon of it is fairly unobtrusive and distant. And so if people don't want to acknowledge the Walmite trilogy, then they're not missing anything. They'll be fine.
The Walmart Omnibus has Warren's measurements. Is it different from Kamen America? Because it's kind
Forgot
of
about that.
Yeah, it's canon, non-canon. It's basically how you interpret it.
Another way to say this would be to say it is broad strokes canon to Kamen America. That meaning the general events of Macadamia happened, just not the exact way we saw them in the comic. So, in regards to Kamen America, we know that All Might existed, that Kamen America during her time as Warren met All Might, and we know that the Cape Canaveral incident, aka the events of All Might First Term Part 2, happened. In terms of the things we know that didn't happen, we know that Warren's backstory is in-universe propaganda as referenced in Kamen America Volume 1. We also know that while Warren, Marmot Maiden, and Isosterone were being controlled to fight All Might, they did not undergo any transformations. The last thing is that, based on the creator's comments on alternate universes, chances are the final fight of All Might 3, the Megalorian, happened a little differently. I'm thinking less of a crisis and more of a clone saga. And that covers everything at the time of this recording. Now I'll give you a quick summary of the rules so you'll be able to apply them to future releases. Any volume release of Kamen America or Black Ops is considered canon. Same is true for any release of Soul Finder unless Doug Ernst chooses to take the series in its own direction. There are no alternate universes for Kamen America, meaning that any spin-off like Kamen Academy or the upcoming Area 51 level of classified project that is Kamen America the manga would be canon. By that same note, any crossover would be considered canon, but only the crossover, not the series that the commonality is crossing over with. Lastly, My Hero Macadamia is considered broad strokes canon to the rest of the franchise. I hope you found this video helpful and that you continue enjoying Kamen America.